Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So I don't know if you've ever taken notice of the fact that I almost never speak politically from this podium. I usually reserve all the politics for later, for the finish strong, because that's a format that permits people to voice their opinions. And one of the unique challenges that we have in our society today is there isn't real discourse, there isn't real conversation when it comes to politics. What it ends up degrading to is name calling. And so I purposely try never to speak from this spot in the synagogue on the issue of politics because you really don't have an opportunity to respond. That's actually not true. People respond all the time to what I'm saying, often interrupting me, but that's besides the point. But what I will say is that the analogy that I'm going to offer you today isn't perfect, but it is close enough to be able to address the issue because it does bring us some focus on an issue that is incredibly important in today's society. So let me stop for a moment and say that I do not believe, me personally, I do not believe that the greatest challenge facing humanity today is climate change. I just don't believe it. I believe it's a huge challenge. Don't get me wrong. Please don't misinterpret me. You can go back and watch the videotape. I don't think it's the largest, biggest problem facing us today. I think it's a significant challenge, one that has to be addressed immediately, but I think that the largest issue facing the United States today is immigration. I don't believe it's gun control. I don't believe it's the opioid epidemic. I do believe that the largest challenge facing us today here in America is immigration because at its core, it's about how people treat other people. And if we can't learn how to get along with each other, if we can't figure out how to take care of one another, then it doesn't matter if the world comes to an end because we haven't done our job here on this earth. And that is to figure out how to take care of each other. Now, I don't know if any of the facts that I have about immigration to this country are correct. And the reason for that is because I can't figure out where to get information that's reliable. We live in a problematic time, and that is there is so much information that's out there that it's hard to tell what's actually true and what isn't. There are those who estimate that there are 11 million people living in this country illegally. That means they're undocumented. That means they haven't entered this country and achieved citizenship in any significant way while they do participate in our society. And to say that we can take all 11 million people and put them somewhere or drive them out is really an impossible circumstance. I don't think there are enough buses to do it. And we don't know where they would go. And so the issue that faces our society is we have to do two things. One is we have to find safe places for these people, and we also have to figure out how they can become citizens. Today, that's called pathway to citizenship. That's the political term that's bantered about. Pathway to citizenship. That is, we have to find a way for people who want to be here and want to contribute to our society in a meaningful way to be able to do so. People who are running away from things that are dangerous. People who are trying to make a better life for themselves. They're seeking asylum. And that's where the analogy breaks down to this morning's Parsha, because this morning's Parsha is about creating sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities in the Torah are for people who have done something either purposefully or by accident and were waiting for trial, or safety because they did something by accident, and it's been determined that already, to be able to reside in a place of safety. Now, the analogy breaks down because there are many people who come to this country who have done nothing wrong. And so to say they belong in sanctuary cities because their own protection requires it is not exactly true, but it's close enough that I want to talk about it this morning. Because there's one incredibly important statement that's made in the Torah. It says, when you enter the land of Israel, you should establish 3 sanctuary cities. And you should prepare the way for them. That is, you should build roads that allow those cities easy access. You have to prepare a path in order to allow people to be able to get there. Because if you have sanctuary cities but no way to get to them, then those cities are of no use. And so the Torah says, Tachin lecha derech, that you should make a pathway. You should create a pathway towards those sanctuary cities. And Ibn Ezra says something remarkable. He says, Tachin lecha derech, that to prepare a pathway for them really means liyot ha'arim b'makom sheyeh darko muchenet u'miyushevet. That those cities have to be placed in locations where people can get to them. And that they have to be already established. So that when people get there, there's something for them to do. That they're prepared for them. That they're not there struggling to survive. That is, these sanctuary cities have to be usable and inhabited. So that when they arrive, they're not floundering. And Chizkuni says something even better. Chizkuni says, let's not focus on the cities, let's focus on the pathways to getting there. Make sure that the roadways are wide enough, that they're safe enough, that they're paved, so to speak, so that people who want to get there can get there safely. And that would be a fantastic model for how we might go about establishing a pathway to citizenship here in this country. Right? That there has to be an end result, there has to be an end goal, and there has to be a path to getting there. And we have to figure out how to create that. That would be a very nice sermon, if I were going to give a political sermon this Shabbos. But I really don't want to, because I think that something that's plaguing our society right now is something that is as difficult a challenge as immigration, and that is our children. I think that we're pushing our kids too hard. I think that our kids are overprogrammed. I think our kids have too many pressures on them. And I think it's manifesting itself in horrible ways in our schools and in our playgrounds today. I think we're seeing an alarming rate of gun shootings, shootings in schools. I think we're seeing the elevation of bullying to the level of murder. I see that kids are being pushed so hard today that levels of suicide are rising. And I think that our children are suffering the most from the pressures that exist in our society. And so I'm going to offer you one simple suggestion. And I know it's an oversimplification, and I don't think it's going to solve every problem in every circumstance, but I do believe that we in our homes need to create safe havens. We need to make our homes little cities of refuge for our children. We have to find a way to reestablish dinner in the evening that's devoid of the pressures of social media. We have to establish a time for our kids to sit around the table without their cell phones, without their tablets, without the TV on, and just talk to one another. And we have to do that by creating rules in our homes that says there's certain language that's unacceptable. We have to do that by creating rules about what time we're going to be together as a family and what time is alone time. We have to establish rules about what kinds of games are acceptable to play in the house and what kind of games are beyond what we find to be acceptable. We have to create safe havens for our children in our homes. And we have to create pathways to doing that. And that means establishing rules, but also enforcing them. When we say dinner's going to be at 6 o'clock and everybody's going to sit around the table, it means you might not be able to stay to the end of baseball practice. It may mean that we're not going to have a family outing on one night a week. That maybe Shabbat will be our safe haven. Our world is growing ever more dangerous. And we need to find a way to build little sanctuary cities that exist in our own homes. That when a kid walks into his or her house and sees a mezuzah on the door, he knows that the values of our tradition are going to be alive and well within that home. And that when he sees or she sees that mezuzah on their way out, that child is then going to bring those values out into the world. The mezuzah becomes for us a reminder that there are values that we have to hold sacred in our sanctuary city, our home. This week's Parsha can be about global issues and about creating a just society. Tzedek tirdof, we should all pursue a just society, but a just society is never going to happen if we don't begin at home. If we don't find a way to care for our most precious people in our society, we'll never learn how to prepare, we'll never learn how to behave and treat those who live on the periphery. If we can't take care of our core, then those on the outside are never going to feel welcome. This week's Parsha begs of us, Hamelech HaRachaman, God the most merciful, Rachem Aleinu, have compassion on us so that we can extend that compassion to other places, so that we can be compassionate both within our homes and outside, that our children will grow up to be compassionate, mercy-loving, justice-pursuing people. This week's Parsha seems to be at the very core of what is it to be a society. That is, what is it to live together one-on-one, together, so that we can learn how to get along. But more than get along, we want to learn how to thrive in a world that provides us with so many resources that there is enough to go around to take care of everybody. I never was a believer that a child who has tremendous faith in him or herself will go up and do bad things. It's people who feel worthless to themselves that end up being angry at others. This week's Parsha offers us a model for how we can care for our most precious so that in turn, the next generation won't have to deal with the challenges this generation is dealing with. Shabbat Shalom. We continue with Musaf, page 184. Chatzi Kaddish, please rise.